This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman as we continue our look at this new documentary, The Encampments, about the historic Columbia University Gaza Solidarity Encampment and the nationwide student uprising against U.S. support for Israel's war on Gaza. The film prominently features Mahmoud Khalil, the Columbia graduate student protest negotiator who was seized by federal agents 3 weeks ago and remains locked up in an ICE jail in Louisiana. There is a court hearing for him today in New Jersey. This is a clip of Mahmoud Khalil from the documentary.
I was approached the night of the encampment that I would be the person communicating with the administration. The organizers trusted me, given my background in terms of working in diplomacy, either at the British Embassy or here at the UN. We discussed who's best to support me, and we felt that Sweden is the perfect person.
The university wanted to shut down the encampment in any way that it could. When it first started, they were like, let's not let them bring in water, let's shut down all of the gates, let's not let them bring in tents, let's not let them bring in blankets, because it was cold, it was freezing.
They underestimated the will of the students. They literally feel that these are just kids. Through my conversation, I just felt how much the university is detached from reality. What university in the world want to invest in weapon manufacturers? Why would you do that? You're concerned with education. We're literally giving you back the university to be a moral university. Every time in the negotiations when we told them that, they would say oh, you're overestimating your power or your influence. But then after the fourth day, they were just so silent because clearly it's a global movement. I remember telling him at this point there are 60 universities setting up encampments across the United States. They're just waiting to hear what would happen at Columbia.
That was Mahmoud Khalil, the graduate student protest organizer and negotiator with the university, who's in this film featured in The Encampments. We're joined now by three guests. Munir Atalla is the producer of The Encampments, head of production acquisitions at Watermelon Pictures. He was a Columbia adjunct professor of film last spring. Grant Minor is also with us, the president of the Student Workers of Columbia, UAW 2710. He was expelled by Columbia for taking part in the pro-Palestine campus protests. He was fired as a graduate worker 1 day before his union entered bargaining talks. He's president of the local UAW at the Columbia. And Sweta Polat is with us, graduate student in human rights at Columbia University. Along with Mahmoud, she negotiated between the student activists and the Columbia administration. Sweta, I want to begin with you. It's also where the film begins very movingly as you talk about why you even came to Columbia as a graduate student in human rights, that's not a common major.
It most definitely isn't a common major. This is my graduate degree. Prior to that, I was in sociology. But before starting at Columbia University, I spent some time in Palestine, particularly in the West Bank. And I think it was just seeing the strangulation of life in Palestine, the squashing of people and the regular indignities that they've been exposed to in their everyday life, I think was a very transformative political moment for me. And upon returning from the West Bank, I knew I wanted to work on the Palestinian liberation movement. And in the United States, Columbia University had the strongest record, particularly for Palestine, with the Center for Palestine Studies, as well as being a host for so many scholars of Palestine, of Edward Said, of Joseph Massad, and so many other professors. And it was also known as being a protest school. And I felt that it would be the right fit, but I was sorely mistaken.
So how did you end up being a chief negotiator between the students and the university, along with Mahmoud? So the two of you worked side by side as you met with the administration.
I think the first few days of the encampment particularly were very confusing for a lot of people. On the first night of the first encampment prior to the arrests is when the administration first reached out wanting to talk about what our demands were. At the time, like Mahmoud said in the documentary, he had a lot of experience in diplomacy, but he didn't want to go in alone. And some of my friends recommended me to meet with the administration with him.
And what do you mean he had experience in diplomacy?
I mean, he's been working at the Palestine mission at the United Nations. He's at SIPA, where he studies a lot of diplomacy, international relations.
International
Yes, the School of International Affairs at Columbia University. And he's also, you know, he's 30 years old. He's very experienced. He's a diplomat through and through, so he was a good choice.
So I want to go to another clip from the film Encampments.
The genocide didn't start on October 7th, neither did the pro-Palestinian movement generally on campus. Students had already pushed like divestment referendums in previous years. We had voted on divestment referendums at various colleges within Columbia. All of them passed.
Immediately, the president sent out an email saying, we don't have actual general consensus amongst the student body or amongst our community, in which they include in the community the Columbia alumni.
Free! Free Palestine! Free! Free Palestine! Free! Free! Free Palestine! Free! Free! Free Palestine! What do we want? Justice! When do we want it? Now!
We had done everything we could think of. We did peaceful protest, that was ignored. We did strategic interruptions, that was ignored and punished. Students had written up this whole divestment proposal saying that it is not only possible, but would be easy, and that was just dismissed out of hand.
They changed all the protest rules. They wouldn't approve any of our events. They would just criminalize anyone who would participate in a protest.
If they were just going to ignore us, then we had to do something that couldn't possibly be ignored by the administration.
Another clip from the encampments, and one of the voices there was Grant Minor, the president of Student Workers of Columbia, UAW 2710. He's been fired and expelled. A fifth-year grad student. Grant, you're also Jewish American. Can you talk about why you've participated in this and address directly the issue of somehow the encampments creating an anti-Semitic environment? When Democracy Now! Went to cover it, so many of the students involved were Jewish students.
Yes, I mean, why I participate in it, I mean, there's a number of reasons. I'm a labor organizer. It's really important to our members that we had a firm stance on this. We are a social justice union. UAW more broadly practices social justice unionism.
And you're a graduate instructor.
Yes. And so, it was important that we were there. I think as a Jewish person as well, it was important to me that, we be visible in the Palestine movement. And I guess to address the sort of, specter of anti-Semitism in the encampments, I mean, to be honest with you, it's just not something I've ever experienced in the Palestine movement. The encampments in particular were enormously welcoming. We had, services. The encampments coincided with Passover. There were actually members of the Jewish studies faculty that would come into the encampment and, speak and be in community with Jewish students.
I wanted to go to another clip of the encampments with the Jewish student protesters at Columbia and their allies taking part in a Havdalah service. The clip features the Israeli-American rabbi, Abby Stein.
We are here, and if anyone here disagrees with me, you can tell me. But I think we are here because we are Jews, not just because we happen to be, because that is part of who we are, to fight for liberation of every human being, to know that every human being is a divine image. That is what we're doing right now. And we are separating ourselves from people who are somehow incapable of seeing that. We are fighting for the divine spark, for the Tzelem Elohim in every person. You're all so amazing, and it's an honor to be here with you.
If you're familiar with the Havdalah service, please sing loudly and proudly. If you're not, please sing loudly and proudly. It is very Jewish to not know the words and not know everything, but you'll catch on.
Another clip from the encampments. Grant, you have just been expelled. That's not just losing your job. That's your 5 years that you've been a graduate student. You're not getting your PhD. On what grounds were you expelled?
I was expelled for participating in pro-Palestinian protests. I mean, functionally, I was expelled for speaking out against genocide. And, you know, it was really shocking. I mean, I learned this as I was away doing research on a departmental grant. It was tough to learn that Columbia was, you know, more than willing to just totally concede to Trump, to throw its students under the bus, to throw international students especially under the bus, you know, just to get back some, you know, some money and to please the administration.
I mean, this is a very frightening time. You not only have Mahmoud, who is jailed in Louisiana, you have another student who has left the country because her visa was revoked, the star student. Munir Atalla, you are the producer of the Encampments. It's opening in what, New York, Los Angeles next week and beyond?
That's right. This is a film that's going to be opening here in New York this weekend, and then we'll take it nationwide next weekend. Already the demand has been very strong. I think people are eager to see the encampments from within, from the student perspective. Most of the coverage of the encampments to date has been from people who actually never even set foot on the encampments. Whereas for us, you know, I was an adjunct professor at Columbia last spring, and we witnessed the student movement.
So you're teaching film there.
Right, yeah, exactly. Actually a lab and documentary production, and some of our students even chose to cover this as part of their work. But, you know, what we witnessed...
I saw many of the Columbia journalism students say it was quite something what they were doing. They had a little more access than other reporters because the university had shut down the campus.
Yeah, no, I mean, Columbia has gone to every extent to try and censor this movement and be really a leader in repressing it as well. Let's not forget, this was the largest student movement in U.S. history. And, you know, the students have always been on the right side of history. Columbia's own history shows that. They were on the right side in the 1960s during the Civil Rights Movement. They were on the right side in the 90s in the fight against apartheid.
I wish Juan was joining me in this conversation. Juan Gonzalez, our co-anchor of Democracy Now!, because he participated in the Columbia 1968, basically you could say encampment, occupation, and you go back and forth in the film.
That's right, you know, and just as the students stood on the right side of history in the past, so too are they standing on the right side of history today. And their demands for a disclosure of financial assets, their demand for Columbia to invest its multi-billion-dollar endowment from arms companies is not only a righteous and just demand, but it is inevitable. And the sooner Columbia sees that, the more embarrassment and shame it can save itself. You know, can you even call Columbia a university anymore? A university has the obligation to protect its students. A university has the obligation to stand by the core values of academic institutions, freedom of expression and speech.